how's everyone doing today? I am doing well. Well, this will not be posted till Monday. We're starting it Sunday evening because we're making our dessert of the week. We are making mahogany cake. If you've never heard of it, I wouldn't be surprised. I hadn't heard of it till recently. It's actually the precursor to red velvet cake. It was very popular in the early 1900s. Had kind of the rich, light, subtle, good chocolate texture and flavor. And eventually, it kind of gave off just a bit of a red hue. And then people started incorporating either beet juice originally and then eventually red dye, as we all use the food coloring, to really amp up the red flavor, and then it becomes red velvet all together. But the velvet comes from the taste and texture that we originally had with mahogany cake. So I thought, all right, I like red velvet usually. Let's try this and see how that goes. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do an ermine frosting, which I've also never heard of, but reminds me of frostings I have heard of. Kind of like a boiled frosting, but not exactly like what I've known. So, should be interesting. All right. First thing, we have 2 cups of cake flour. Go in there. That in there. Oh, actually, the very first thing we did when we got the oven preheating to 350 is we prepped our cake pans. So it said to grease and flour them, but I'll be honest, since it's going to be a chocolate cake, as opposed to flour, if you can, use cocoa powder instead, because you're already doing chocolate, so you might as well just kind of amp that up. So you just put all the butter spread all around, and then tap that cocoa powder all around it. That was the first step. Now moving on to our dry ingredients. Just gotta make sure I've got all the right measurements. Alright, so we have the 2 cups of cake flour. We're gonna be doing, yeah, okay, you're the only one doing tablespoons, so we'll do 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder. And that may not seem like a lot, but cocoa powder, it goes a long way as a flavor. If you've ever tried it, you know it's that real bitter, not that super sweet chocolate taste. That's what everything else brings to it. Got that going in there. Got a teaspoon of baking soda. Then a teaspoon and a quarter of salt, which makes sense because we've got all that cocoa powder. Whenever you got cocoa powder, you're going to wind up doing some salt. It really helps bring out the richness of the flavor. It may not seem it, it may seem counterintuitive because it's salt, and how could salt be sweet? But it is. Just gonna get this all nicely mixed together. But if you don't have cake flour, I looked this up earlier because I wasn't sure if I was gonna have quite enough. I did. But if you don't have cake flour, and you have a recipe that calls for it, what you do is measure out all-purpose flour, and for every cup of all-purpose flour, remove 1 tablespoon of the flour and add in 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. And mix well, and then that acts as 1 cup of cake flour. Alright, got our dry ingredients. Give me 1 sec, I'm going to switch some stuff out. Alright, so we're on to our wet ingredients. So we're going to cream a stick and a half of room temperature butter very well. Alright, so that's good. Now we're going to add in our 1.5 cups of sugar. Alright. Now we're going to add 3 eggs, each one at a time. They are also room temperature. Egg number 2. And egg number 3. Alright. Bring it on our sides. It's got a little bit done. There we go. Now we're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Get that blended in. Okay. Scrape down our sides again. Getting everything down there. And then just scooch this out of the way just a smidge. Got a cup of buttermilk at room temp. We're going to be mixing in 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. If you don't have that, you can use white vinegar. that combined. Bring this back now. And now we're going to add in that buttermilk with that apple cider vinegar. Good. Get all of it out. Good. We'll mix this, and then we are getting close to done with the cake. Alright, we're going to get our flour mixture. We're going to gradually mix that out. Add more in. Remember, no matter what you're doing, turn on low first, then you can pick it up. You don't want it flying everywhere. Alright, time to add the last of it in. Looking pretty well mixed. We're going to scrape down our sides. Then we're going to beat it on kind of a high for a couple minutes. Just get it all nice and fluffy. Then it will be ready to bake. Alright, and now we're going to split it evenly between our two cake and bake it for about 25 to 30 minutes. Alright, it's time to put them in the oven and bake them. Alright, we'll check back. Guys are kind of zoomed out. There we go. Alright, so we've tested both cakes. They've come out cleanly. They smell divine. So we're going to take them out. Took 30 minutes. And let them cool. We're just going to let them cool overnight. Because we're going to make the frosting tomorrow. So we'll check back in tomorrow. Hi there, we are back making our cake. We've got our saucepan on medium heat. We have a cup and a half of sugar. We have 6 tablespoons flour and a half a teaspoon of salt. If it's bit into that, so we can just do a quicker dump into it. And whirl this all together, get it all nice. Okay, next, then we've got 1.5 of whole milk. Since we're going with an older and all recipe and be a little authentic with it, just going to do the whole milk. You might be able to substitute a lower percentage, but it's not too big a deal. Got this going. Just getting it mixed, getting everything well combined. And now we're just going to heat up. And I'll check back in with you later. Alright, so it took about 5-6 minutes, stirring it occasionally during that time, but now we're getting to this full boil. It's really thick enough, so we're going to stir it constantly for a minute. Down just a smidge. We're doing that, letting it become boiled. And yes, I changed whisk because I realized I think this is the kind where you don't use metal on it because it'll scratch. I'm not positive, so I switched to my other whisk just to be on the safe side, so I can double check for the next time I use this. Coming up on our minute, stirring constantly. Alright. going to turn this off. You'll see right behind, I'm going to kind of prop you guys up here. So we're going to cool it in the fridge for an hour. Put it in a clean bowl that I can cover. It needs to get much cooled off. You get it close to room temperature, so the fridge will help speed that up. Otherwise, if you leave it out, you got to leave it out for, I bet, at least 2, if not 3 hours to get it to room temp. There we go. Scrape that out. Covering it up, and we'll be back in about an hour for the next step. Oh, and if you were doing this exactly at 1 hour, you would have your butter sitting out, 3 sticks of butter sitting out, getting to room temp. Alright, so we're ready for our next step, our final step in the frosting, and then move on to being able to then frost the cake. Alright, so we have 3 sticks of butter that we've let sit out and get to room temp. We're going to cream those, then add in our extracts, and add in that boiled mixture that we refrigerated for a little over an hour. We're using our little whisk so you can put through. One thing I like this versus the other one, but I think this will be better with the boiled mixture. The other one, it's easier to get it all out. It's creaming the butter. Okay. Get in there. just it gets caught in the middle on this kind of attachment, so you gotta make sure you're getting that off and push to the sides of the bowl so that it all gets creamed. So you get the right texture and the blobs of butter where you're hoping for frosting. So try to get it down on this round as opposed to later. Things in with it. Alright, so add in our pretty well blended. Spoon and a half of vanilla extract. And a half a teaspoon. Make sure everything's getting well blended. Sides down, and then you can see it's so much creamier. It's a lot easier, but just get it out to make sure everything is blending appropriately as we want. Blending around, I'll let that kind of cream for about a minute or so. Stuff that in. So that's looking really nice and really pretty. I hope you guys can see it. Alright, so now we're going to scrape down the sides of it. Just a second to keep it nice and out of space. Sorry, I guess you're not quite seeing because the blender's in the way. But you'll see sort of all of it out. It's been in the fridge. It's cooled down to room temp. It's not cold, it's just pretty much at room temp. Was the goal. You don't want it actually going over to do this like you would for a more traditional or kind of, go faster. Do you guys see it all in there? Alright. So start over. So it gets nice and light and fluffy. We're going to let it go like that for a few minutes and take up to 5. And then actually pause it and take at least 5 minutes and we'll come back with you. About 5 minutes. That almost like creamy, whipped creamy looking like texture. It's exactly what we're looking for. So we're gonna, let me pause and rearrange. Alright guys, so this frosting is delish. Try it a little. So we're gonna kind of spread it. Got a knife in case I need it. This is not, it's fluffier than buttercream. So just gonna kind of get it all on layer 1 before we put layer 2 on there. Make sure you've got that all generously coated. Time for layer 2. Decide, I might do it this way. I'll do it this way. And they're like, oh, just pour it on and then just get it to go around the edges. It's like putting whipped cream on a cake, but tastier.
And it's to die for.
Yes. Dee's got to try the frosting.
I'm just hovering, so whatever's left over, I'm going to take a spoon too.
You have to.
Oh, man.
You can't waste stuff like this.
I have to put it in
We're
the
gonna have to.
in the refrigerator.
Yeah. I figured we've got one that will go over this plate and just keep it in the fridge till we devour it all. We'll see if there are leftovers. I'm not necessarily sure there would be. And for company coming to.
Now, is it supposed to be naked on the side?
No, I'm just kind of like just let it breathe it down there. Whatever, you know. Just kind of letting it do its thing. Oh, and you didn't get to like try a little bit of the batter, or did you get to try some of the batter before I washed dishes? Yeah, it's a good solid chocolate.
I figured.
And I'd recommend a crumb layer, but I don't even know how you begin to do that with this kind of frosting. So, if you know, props to you. Share your tips. But if you don't, then as long as it tastes good, we're going to go with the Mima philosophy there. Just try to touch up the sides as we can. Not exactly. Not easy to do, but we try anyway. right, guys. Bon appetit. See you later.